All right, Javi. I teased it a little bit there with Fernando Tatis Jr., but when is he actually expected to be back? Because isn't he still going to be like suspended for like the first 30 or 40 games or something?
Yeah, he's going to be back hopefully a little bit sooner because of the Padres' lovely playoff run, of course.
Okay.
But man, look, just please, man, you know what I mean? Just get back, be okay. He's going to be suspended for the beginning, and so that's going to leave some room for some other guys to potentially step up. We're going to see. We're going to see where they play Matt Carpenter. We're going to see where they play exactly. If maybe man, is we sure Xander Bogaerts is going to always play at short? I remember some people thought at one point he might play a little bit of second, and Ha-Seong Kim shortstop. We'll see how that goes. We'll see if Tatis plays a little bit of left field. They say Soto's going to play left field, but Tatis probably is going to play right field. And in fairness, Soto was pretty atrocious in left field last year, or right field last year. So we'll see how that all pans out. But, Jose Zokar, how much run does he potentially get? Guys like that, we're going to see if there's any other spring training darling that maybe makes the team to potentially at least get a shot until Tatis gets back. But yeah, like April or so, that's what I've last heard. So, as long as he fills out the suspension and at least he's going to be participating in team activities. He's been there. He looks great. And that's really all you can hope for if you're the Padres right now.
Yeah, and he only played 130 games in 2021, still finished third in MVP voting,
Yeah.
still led the league in home runs as well. So I think if you get 130 games out of Fernando Tatis Jr., that's about
Yeah,
all
man.
you need, especially if he's there for the postseason. That's really the most important thing. But what happened to my guy, Juraxen Profar? Is he still a free agent out there? Has
He
anyone picked him
is
up?
my boy Jerickson, man. My boy Jerickson. He free him. What is going on? And
He's
in
free.
fairness, yeah, I know, right? He is that. Good point, actually. I didn't think of that. Look, he is still on the market, and I don't think the Padres are going to get him. They already got Carpenter, like I said. I don't really see. They'd probably rather bring up a minor leaguer. I think he's an average, okay player, and maybe he overplayed his hand. Maybe Boris and them they thought opt out of your contract. You're going to get something else, and he still doesn't have a contract. It's actually kind of like one of the secretly more weird kind of storylines in baseball right now that he still hasn't been signed anywhere. I don't know if this is like, could this be Michael Conforto part two? I know we talked about him in the earlier in the podcast, where it's like, is he secretly hurt? Right? Because that was weird when the Michael Conforto thing happened. I was like, this is a guy who's been a home run king for a while, and he's not that bad defensively. He's not great, but he's not bad. And he just didn't sign anywhere, and then all of a sudden came out he's actually going to miss the season. And of course, me being an idiot, ended up drafting him in fantasy baseball last year, so that was fun. So look, I just make picks sometimes that I get too obsessed with being like a hipster and like picking the player nobody wants, and then I do it by accident. And then I'm like, wait a minute, why did I take Cody Bellinger? Like, what am I doing? Like, this is so dumb. But yeah, I think that in general, Profare, as I like to call him,
Profare.
I'd love if he signs with a good team, at least a fun one, because I really enjoyed him on the Padres. I know he had a bad second half. I know there's a lot of criticisms with him as a player, but it's really just cool to see him playing. I mean, this is a guy who's a top level prospect that shoulder gets super messed up, struggles for a bunch of years, and it's just cool that he's still in the league. To be quite honest with you,
Yeah, and I felt wasn't he like kind of sneaky important to what the Padres were doing last year? Like I felt like he was kind of a
he
glue
was
guy to your
okay.
team.
Little bit of a glue guy, yeah, especially early on. He was playing
Yeah.
decent defense, which is mostly because of his arm strength, not because he's particularly fast or gets to the ball really well. But he had a bunch of outfield assists at one point, which was really rad. And at one point, he was just hitting home runs all the time. So, especially early on in the season for a team that was missing Tatis, right? And they didn't manage to get a big power bat. That was a big thing for them, where it was like, all right, this guy came out and just exploded onto the scene. So that was really good, even if it was just for the first like 2 months or so. I thought just based on that a team would be like, all right, cool, let's give this guy a shot. And he's only 30, so
Yeah.
that's the other thing. Feels like he's been in the league for like 20 years, but he's only 30. So
Yeah, he was so young when he broke in, and like you said, he was like maybe one of the most heralded prospects of all time. I remember just
mm-hmm.
hearing him year after year as the number one guy, 5-tool player. This guy could do it all, and it's like he's probably he's got 5 tools, but are any of them that highly rated?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. And then I see you guys also let go my other fan favorite that I like to hate on, Will Myers. That's pretty sad. I saw he signed with the Cincinnati Reds for a little 1 year, $7.5 million deal, but. Speaking of free agents, Javi, I could go in two different directions here with the way I opened that question. Let me start here actually before we get into a little controversy. How close do you think the Padres actually were to signing Aaron Judge, and how did it feel to you that they actually like how close they actually were? Like, were you actually anxious and like actually felt like it was believable that your team could do that?
I thought no because I just thought there were other teams that wanted him more. I thought the
Yeah.
Yankees wanted him more. I thought the Giants wanted him more. And just in general, like it didn't seem like it. Now, the Padres are just I think it was more of a hey, we want every good player. So this guy's good. We want to have a call with him. Like they're not going to be intimidated by what someone might cost. I mean, there's already rumors and articles coming out and reports that the Padres are going to
Otani.
be super aggressive on Shohei Ohtani next year, right? So they're not intimidated. Whether or not that means they'll get them is a different thing. But it's also just cool to see that they're like we're never done, like we're still going. So I want to see how that pans out. But I think the deal was they at first said that they offered him like 4 4 something crazy, right?
Like
And
400 or something.
yeah, it was like 400 million. That turned out not to be true, but they did speak with him and have some meetings with him, probably around the time maybe when he was visiting San Francisco. So I don't think they were particularly close, but they were laying the groundwork. And hey, there's more that goes into these things. Maybe it was just they wanted to talk to his agent because they see some client down the line and they want to build that relationship. That happens all the time in like the NBA and whatnot, where it's like I
Mhm.
remember back in the day, it'd be like Durant is meeting with the Portland Trailblazers, and it's like no, he's not. His agent is meeting with them, and he's just gonna go there to say hi. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that plays a part in this too. Is just cultivating a good culture of being like, hey, we want you here. We just want to say what's up. We would love to have you. Obviously, we have a certain number in mind. You might not take it, but just establish networking. Dare I say?
Yeah, and they could have done just to drive up the bidding price on Judge so he
Yeah.
doesn't go to San Fran. And if you're talking about Slam Diego, then I think you have to bring Aaron Judge in the mix and have that. Like if you had Soto, Tatis, Machado, Judge as your core four, then yeah, Slam Diego is at a different level at that point. And that would have been absolutely insane. But now, speaking of free agents, Javi, one guy who is looking for a little extension, a little bit more money on his deal, and is threatening to opt out at the end of the season. We've been talking all this stuff about the core four, watching it over the next 5 to 6 to 7 to 10 years. But what if this core four is a 1 year wonder? Does that make you nervous at all?
I don't know, man. I don't know. This is a good final question, though. This is a good one. I like this one to kind of close things out. Um,
Final question. What you mean?
we've been going for a decent amount of time for this episode. Don't worry, folks. You got more of us joking around soon. Um, yes, that does worry me. I think that with this next year, you will at least have Soto, you will have Bogarts, you'll have Tatis, but with Manny, there's some questions. I think the problem with Manny is I think they have the advantage of hometown discount, and I don't mean in terms of money. I mean in terms of him wanting to play there. I think he loves it there.
Lifestyle.
Yeah, lifestyle discount. I think that that's true. That means you could skirt by maybe 10 million or something, maybe something like that. But I think more importantly, he'll have the first call. They'll be in contact constantly. It's not going to be, say, what I imagine Corbin Burns feels about the Brewers, where he's like, I ain't going to talk to you guys at all, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, I'm going to talk to the other teams first. If you guys want to pay more than them, that's fine. But I'm going to them first. And I think that does mean something. So we'll see how that pans out. But my other thing in terms of how it might not happen is the Mets just paid how much money to Carlos Correa? It didn't go through. They paid a lot of money for Carlos Correa. Manny Machado, probably a better player than Carlos Correa.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to be shy about spending money in that direction. New York Yankees. That's a team that hasn't had a third baseman literally since A-Rod, dare I say, or probably since Chase Headley, which is another Padres connection, right? Which is wild.
Yeah.
Like Chase Headley's probably the best third baseman they've had in a while. I could see them also saying, you know what? I'm sick of Steve Cohen. This is our town. You know what I mean? So they're going to try and take it back. So I think if those two teams get involved is when it could become a little bit tricky. And that's when you have to really hope that, all right, hopefully he just really wants to stay here because those guys are ready to pony up for sure.
Yeah, and maybe, a team like the Giants who missed out on a whole bunch of big-time free agents this past year, maybe they want to get back in the race and say, hey, let's steal a star from one of our division rivals and add him to our lineup. Maybe the D-backs want to do that, add a Manny Machado to third base. I really doubt that, but I fully expect a lot of teams to be after the Manny Machado services just because he's, of course, a stud major leaguer. But are you Are you at least worried that if he does leave, that maybe the Padres should just think about trading him this season? Do you want to do a Baltimore Orioles and trade him too late instead of too early? Maybe you guys got to start thinking about trading him
Nah.
at the deadline.
Nah, man, how dare you? That was insulting. How dare you? I want everyone to send him mean tweets now. How dare you? If everything went awful, obviously, right? Like that would require a lot of injuries, a lot of poor performances. And unlike the Orioles, the Padres are probably not going to have like the worst defensive team of all time, which was that Orioles team. That was also when Manny was playing short and he wasn't doing all that great there either. So I don't see that happening whatsoever. I think more so it's if they are unable to re-sign him, that makes all the other free agents a lot more interesting. And that makes the possibility, even if slim, of maybe saying, all right, we're going to give this money to Soto, probably more. So they have some like contingency plans, I think, which gives them a little bit of leverage in this potential negotiation process. Although I do think that they prefer signing him.
Okay. I'm very curious to see what happens to the Padres this season. I'm hoping because you look at that core four, you say, okay, the Padres are going to reach great heights, reach great ceilings this season. But there's also a little potential for a little combustibility with that Tatis, Xander Bogaerts position swap, and then the Manny Machado contract situation. Then it's like, also, don't forget Juan Soto. Has he got his contract extension yet? He's also on the horizon. So this team could get real expensive, real fast. Maybe the ego start playing into it. It's like, whoa, all of a sudden, this Padres team that we thought was going to be around for a half decade is getting blown up. That would be my absolute favorite scenario. You brought up Ohtani right there. Just real quick, do you think he's getting $500 million next offseason? What do you think his contract's looking like?
Man. Oh, man. I mean, it's just that the 500 million, I'm going to say no, but I think he's going to be really close, like a 480. I'm only saying no just because we still haven't crossed 400, right? So if we haven't crossed 400, a 100 million extra, it's possible. I mean, especially because of the marketability. I mean, you immediately get like the biggest, most exciting talent in the game. Everyone's going to go want to see him. I mean, I remember like a friend of mine who was at a Yankees game. No one was watching Luis Severino warm up. Everyone was over and watching Shohei Ohtani warm up. Like, he's got that crazy blockbuster factor that the league has not seen in a very long time. So that part of it is something that you need to bring into the equation aside from just his playing ability. But I'm going to say no for now. I'm going to lean more conservatively. But then again, if he puts up like a 9-war season again, like, I don't know, they might just say, screw it, let's do this.
And the better question might not be whether he gets $500 million. It might not be the total salary that we look at. The better question might be that annual average salary, because we see baseball players getting like 45 to 47. How much annually is he going to get? He might not get 10 years, 500 million, but maybe he gets 8 years, 450, and he's making like 55 annually or something crazy like that. So I'm very curious, not how long it is or the total, but how much is he going to make year to year, because I think he will be compensated for both that pitching and hitting ability that he has. Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. Any final questions for me today before we depart here?
Nothing immediately. I'm saving them. I'm saving them. I'm keeping them in my holster. I'm keeping them saved up, man, because we got. I mean, this D-backs team, it intrigues me. It really does. It really does.
Intrigues him. Well, that's it for me, Miller Thomas, host of Locked On Diamondbacks. So follow me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 or look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. Javi, where can the listeners find you?
Find me at Javapeno, JAVIIPENO. If you don't like my comic and nerdy tweets that I sometimes put on there, at LO_Padres for all Padres content. Information about the show every now and then too, and then Locked On Padres on YouTube to see my delightful San Diego shirt or my Tatis bobblehead.
Will this be the greatest season in Padres history, or will it blow up in flames? Tune in. I don't know when opening day is. April 5th. Tune in April 5th to find out. That's it from us here at the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast.